Good evening. My name is Lewis Powell. It's my pleasure to come before you once again on behalf of the Cook County Bar Association, the world's oldest African American bar association, founded in 1914 in the city of Chicago. A lot of distinguished attorneys have come out of our great bar associations. The day is a tough day, obviously. Our topic for today, we're going to discuss the election. Our number is 312-730-1060. 312-730, start that, 312-738-1060. 312-738-1060, and the numbers on the bottom of your screen. I'll be joined shortly by my co-host for today's program, Mecca Thompson. And again, I invite you to comment. We just have to be realistic, ladies and gentlemen. Yesterday was a shock. I myself thought that the race was going to be close. However, I thought that Secretary Clinton, would prevail. We have the election of a President-elect Donald Trump, and we do have to respect the position, but we have to be aware of what we're going to be dealing with. Again, you're welcome to call 312-738-1060. If you do call, we want your comments to be brief and to be clean. Okay, we want to do this with grace and dignity. Just because somebody else acts up does not mean that we have to act up. Well, what we're facing on several fronts. We're facing, excuse me, we took a station break. What we're facing on several fronts with the election of Donald Trump. Good afternoon, Mika.
Good afternoon, how are you?
Okay. When you're on the battlefield, ladies and gentlemen, sometime you may be a minute or two late, but she's here, and we're just going to keep on going. But, ladies and gentlemen, this is not a broadcast of doom. Okay, caller, are you there? Caller, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay,
this is Attorney Lewis Myers, Brother Lewis Powell.
My goodness, Lou Myers. For those of you who don't know, this is the Lou Myers.
All right.
Not Lewis Powell, but Lewis Myers Jr.
The Cook County Bar Association does something.
What was that, Lou?
I'm very proud of what you're doing. This is a very critical moment in the life of the African American community,
Yes,
both in Chicago and in the world.
Absolutely.
The results of the election today should be enough to wake up those who have been asleep, and for those who have been awake, it should motivate them to realize that we have a tremendous challenge in America to confront, particularly for the next 4 years and if not the next 8. And I think the Black Bar Association, the Cook County Bar Association, Brother Lewis Powell, that you worked so hard for over a number of years to make it relevant and to make it and to ingratiate itself into the needs of our community. They have a role to play. As African American lawyers, we should be on the front line of combating the racism, combating the xenophobia, and all of the negative things that the new president-elect represents. If we remain silent as lawyers, if we remain silent as a bar association, if we remain silent as fathers and mothers who have children in these streets and in these communities, then we are forfeiting the integrity of the legacy that we have as a former slave people, and now as a supposedly free people. We have the responsibility to make sure that our children have a better world, and nothing can entice me or encourage me more than to see African-American lawyers on the forefront of this battle. Thank you all for so much, and I want to thank the Cook County Bar Association for always being a progressive force in the advocacy of the rights of African Americans. But if we ever needed you, Brother Lewis Powell, if we ever needed the Bar Association, we need you now. You should not be in the back seat. You got to take the front seat, in the front seat of leadership, to give guidance and give direction and to make sure that the future of not just African American lawyers, but the future of our children will be guaranteed and ensured.
Thank you, Lou.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, audience, you just heard one of a legend, a living legend, Louis Myers Jr. Louis Myers has been practicing for a while. He's what we consider an elite attorney, an elite civil rights attorney, an elite civil attorney, an elite criminal defense attorney. He has taught for a number of years in the area of criminal justice for city colleges. Louis Myers has the distinct distinction to be special counsel to Minister Farrakhan, special counsel to Jesse Jackson, special counsel to Minister Sharpton. This gentleman goes back to the 60s. He's a young man, but he's been around for a while. He goes back in the 60s with SNCC. And so he's an activist attorney back from the day in the 60s. And Brother Myers is really laid it out for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is a critical time. We have to be aware of what we're dealing with. And I'm going to turn it over to my co-host in a minute. But let me just amplify what Louis Myers said to get across to you. You're dealing with an individual that has already told you in no uncertain terms that he does not have your best interest in mind. And when I say they, I mean us. I mean African Americans, I mean people of color. He is going to try hard as he can to wreak havoc on whatever we have accomplished over the last several years. Not only the last several years, let's not be mistaken. He's going to try as hard as he can to go back to the 60s in terms of overturning cases. When I say overturning cases, he has the opportunity probably to appoint 2 to 3 Supreme Court justices, meaning that he has the opportunity to wreak havoc on established laws. The immigration is in trouble. Being poor is in trouble. Obamacare, which opened up the doors for affordable health care for individuals, that's in trouble. But what Brother Myers is saying, it is an imperative that we wake up. We, educated individuals, everybody, especially the lawyers, because it's going to take the lawyers to do what we can do to hold this gentleman at bay, because the next 4 years are going to be tough, because he's going to be like a bull in a china shop.
Right.
He has no tact, and he's not going to even try to hold back, but it's going to be up to us to be, as the young people say, strategic.
Right.
We're going to have to be strategic dealing with this gentleman. To the extent we can, we're going to have to combat him in the legal fields. We're going to have to combat him on all fields. Really, quite honest with you, it's really going to take a concentrated effort on everyone to keep this gentleman at bay so he doesn't go totally out of hand. Mecca?
Okay, so some of the issues that we know about, you have alluded to. Health care. We now have what is called the Obamacare, pursuant to an act, a piece of legislation that was enacted during Obama's term of office. And it is scheduled to be, most people right now are applying to renew their membership with particular plans, apply for Medicaid if they're eligible. And those plans, the renewal goes into effect January 2017. However, one of the first things that President-elect Trump had pledged to do was to invalidate that, to basically void it and start over. The plan that he is suggesting will require everyone just to buy health insurance on the marketplace. But that was what was making it impossible for many individuals to get it before Obamacare was enacted. The other thing that wasn't really discussed in his plan was pre-existing conditions. We are now in a situation where many people have disclosed their pre-existing conditions. They have signed up for the first time. There are millions of people in the United States that have health insurance for the first time. So a lot of the health care that they have is covering pre-existing conditions that existed prior to them having health insurance. What now happens to those people? Will they even be eligible for the coverage? Different procedures and healthcare services that they are now receiving or scheduled to receive, will those now be erased? We are just in a really precarious situation with someone that has no background and no experience in putting together proper plans or administering a government agenda, a program. The program, not only did Obama fight to have the legislation enacted, he actually was able to put a department and individuals together that would actually administer this program. And while there were some difficulties initially with the sign-on, millions and millions of people have health care, and this program literally went into effect that year that it was enacted. Can you really believe that someone who has difficulty just paying taxes is going to be effective in identifying individuals that can put together whatever plan he decides to put forth and administering it properly? So those are some critical issues that we do not know how those are going to play out, and we do not have any type of information as to his ability to really administer any type of health care program, not to the level that Obamacare exists today and to the standards that Obamacare has met with that program. Another issue is the law and order, which is a particularly big issue here in Chicago, to the extent that Attorney Fox was elected into the position of Attorney General with this election as a consequence of failures that occurred here in Chicago with regards to properly informing the public as to abuse of authority by police officers that resulted in the death of a young man here in Chicago, and also the failure to even prosecute it. So the information was not provided to the public in a timely fashion, nor was the prosecution of the officers involved occur in a timely fashion. And the Cook County Bar is currently reviewing some of the contracts for the police department, the union contracts, to provide recommendations to the city of Chicago as to how the union contracts for the police department should be modified and changed. What can we expect from Donald Trump as leader of this nation in resolving some very real issues that are popping up all over the nation, and like I said, including Chicago, with law enforcement? There has been mention by Donald Trump during his campaign of an exile program. And I don't know if you were familiar with this. Is something that Ronald Reagan implemented during his on a national level, piggybacking on a program that existed in Rochester. And what it was, it allowed the Rochester Criminal Justice Division to prosecute drug offenses and violent crimes on a federal level, and thereby impose federal prison sentences in federal prisons. And as a consequence, offenders were not able to be housed to serve their sentences in local jails near family members, and near their individuals that they were familiar with who were also housed in the same facilities. They can be spread, wherever the federal court has the jurisdiction. So it resulted on the local level in a reduction of crime. However, when it was applied on the national level, it didn't get the same kind of results. And this goes back to what I mean with administering a program. The executive, the president is the chief executive officer of the executive branch. And as such, he has the authority on selecting individuals who will administer any type of legislation that's enacted by Congress. And so we do not have any type of background, any type of incidences that we can point to indicate that Donald Trump is capable of administering a government program.
Let me circle back to something Lou Meyer started out with. Ladies and gentlemen, again, we have to be strategic. We're going to have to be strategic in terms of our legal approach to the president. A lot of folks do not realize a lot of cases like Brown versus Board of Education, a lot of historical cases are a result of African American attorneys strategically participating in a series of cases that lead up to a monumental cases such as Brown versus Board of Education. This is a nonpartisan show, so we have to be careful, but the party of Donald Trump is not your friend. Strategically, over the last several years, they've been eating away at the Voting Rights Act. Strategically, they've been trying hard as they can to make it difficult for early voting. Why? Because the individuals that vote early historically have not been of the party of Donald Trump. They want to make it very difficult for people of our persuasion to register for vote. So we have an election, of this past election, that African Americans did come out. We had an election where Hispanic individuals did come out. However, the party of Donald Trump was able to chip away significantly from that base. And every vote counts. We saw that with the election of the second Bush. We saw that.
And in this case, it did too. Pennsylvania went by virtue of maybe 12,000 votes. That's a small margin. And so the degree to which the vote, people are not registered and they are not voting really had an effect in this election. I mean, just those 12,000 votes, that's not a lot of votes at all. That's not a lot of votes.
That's a very small margin. But ladies and gentlemen, we as a people, we as a progressive people, because it's not just African Americans, ladies and gentlemen, we have to really buy into coalition politics. Politics is about addition, not subtraction. You always want to make sure that you take care of your base and you maintain your base.
And work together.
But you have to go beyond your base to be successful on a national level. We really, really, really have to hunker down and battle this gentleman. Because if we don't, he's going to steamroll it. The president is very obvious. It's very obvious the president has a lot of power.
Right.
The president, by executive orders, can wreak havoc.
Right.
The president does not necessarily have to wait for an act of Congress. He can bypass it to a certain extent
with executive
orders. And that's how he can wreak havoc. So, what do we do from here? As Attorney Myers said, we have to be on point.
We do. There Senate and congressional party members, there are some elections that will occur in the next 2 years for certain states. So that is an option that we do need to be strategic about and looking at. The issue with the immigration is going to be, I'm sure, one of the first things that Trump starts working on, and erecting the wall is not going to be possible in the next 2 years, but he can begin the process. Now, the degree to which he can start removing individuals, especially those who have any type of criminal backgrounds, out of this country, that can start like tomorrow. And so we need to really be starting real working relationships with other people of color, and to put our strategy together on how to prevent any real damage to our friends in this community and across the country whose families may be adversely and irreparably harmed by any type of deportation that is done in the fashion that Trump has suggested during his campaign.
Absolutely. Friends, the number is 312-738-4637. 1060. 312-738-1060. We invite you to call, but we want you to be respectful in terms of your comments and brief with your comments. Again, the number is 312-738-1060. As Mika has stated, we got in 2 years there are going to be a number of elections around the world, around the country, specifically Congress.
Congress
And
people.
this will be our opportunity to try to gain some ground. Because right now, it's my understanding, the other party has control of the Senate as well as the House of Representatives.
That is correct. I'm sure they're going to finalize their count over the next couple of days. That would also reflect, the final count will reflect the absentee ballots. But there is not likely to be a huge change in that. And then we still have the official election that will occur, the casting of ballots by the Electoral College. So that will change. Once that Electoral College casts their ballot, then President-elect Trump will be President Trump. So getting back to what you were mentioning with regards to elections, the possible deportation of immigrants, as well as any type of exile program that would shift offenders out of one state and into another for the purposes of incarcerating them in a federal prison, could affect the numbers of voters in any state prior to any type of congressional election.
Absolutely.
For example, in Chicago, individuals who are charged with crimes but are not convicted have the ability to vote. They can vote here. That is not necessarily the case in other states. So, whereby they have been transferred to the federal level, now those rules can be changed prior to the election, and where individuals may be just waiting for a trial on the federal level, they may not be eligible to vote. So these are things that we need to be strategic. These are the type of things that we need to be looking at, and these are the type of things that we need to be working toward collectively, not just African Americans, not just Spanish speaking Americans, but we need to come together and really start having that discussion and strategically thinking about what we need to do in the long term. This should not just be a fight against anti-Trump. We need to have, like you said, a political base and understanding of how we're going to work together and make policies possible that those that are elected to the position understand that they need to push forward, and those who are administering these programs need to understand how best to administer them. There's too much of this disconnect, it seems, between those who are being elected and the general constituency, and I think that is at the root of this shakeup that occurred with this election that no one predicted. If we were better communication and better understanding and more connected, we would have been better able to predict what could happen, how it could happen, and make sure that it didn't happen.
Call, are you there? Call, are you there?
Yes.
Go right here. We just have a minute. Please be brief.
Yes.
Go right here. We just have a minute. Please be brief.
Yes.
Go right here. We just have a minute. Please be brief. Caller, do you have a comment? Looks like we lost her. But let me end it with 1 minute. There's a phrase called truth to power. When I had the opportunity to work on the Mayor Harold Washington, the first African-American mayor, we had an expression at City Hall. You have to tell the mayor what you want. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have to tell this president what we want. We're not going to be begging. We have to demand and stress what we want and be vigilant in our fight. Because let there be no mistake, we have a fight on our hands. You have to tell people in power what you want. You don't beg. No one respects anyone that begs. People respect power. Nothing motivates someone with power than somebody that comes to them with power. And ladies and gentlemen, again, this is not a doomsday. message. This is an awakening message that we have to wake up and fight as hard as we possibly can. God bless you. We'll be back on the air next week at the same time.